Hey everyone, what's up? Today, I want to do something a little bit different and take a stroll down memory lane for that nostalgia hit and explain 10 reasons why patch 1.10 changed everything in Diablo 2. Patch 1.10 released for Diablo 2 on October 28, 2003, and was the first patch released for the game in nearly 2 years. Many people look back on 1.09 in a very positive light, myself included, but it had many problems that needed to be addressed for the overall health and longevity of the game, and patch 1.10 was a major turning point in retaining the game's popularity for decades to come. This is part 1 of a planned multi-part series looking back on Diablo 2 over the years, so please subscribe if you want to see more of these in the future. Number 1. Rust Storm. Rust Storm was a process implemented by Blizzard that purged all of the duplicated and illegitimate items that existed in 1.09. Anyone who has ever played 1.09 knew how broken some of the bugged and duplicated items were. A few of my favorites included the 4-socketed Storm Shield, the Oculus or Aki Ring, Ith weapons, and my overall personal favorite, the King's Jewel. As you can quickly see, these items were absolutely broken and led to massive amounts of character power in the game. Many would consider the bugged and duplicated items to be the most busted part of the game back in 1.09 and needed to be removed. Number 2. New Runewords. Once the duplicated and illegitimate items were removed from the game as a part of the Rust Storm process, Blizzard knew that they needed to add exciting new items to make up for the old ones that were being removed. This came in the form of new runewords. Prior to 1.10, there were only a handful of runewords in the game, and none of them are the overpowered ones you think of today. A few of those original runewords include Stealth, Smoke, White, and the most popular runeword in 1.09, Silence. With the 1.10 patch, the much more powerful runewords you think of today were introduced, which includes Call to Arms, Grief, Heart of the Oak, and of course Enigma. And yes, prior to 1.10, the only class that had access to teleport outside of charges was the Sorceress. Number 3. SOJs to High Runes. In 1.10, with the duplicated items being removed and new runewords being added, the in-game trading currency meta transitioned from SOJs to high runes. For any players that never experienced 1.09, this will probably come as a shock to you, but there was a time when gear was traded between players, with SOJs being the primary form of currency being exchanged. This was primarily due to SOJs being one of the most duplicated items in the game. With the massive reduction of SOJs in the game through the Rust Storm and increased demand for high runes because of the new runewords, the economy shifted to using high runes for trading. Number 4. Diablo Clone. On top of Rust Storm removing duplicate SOJs from the market, there was also another system that Blizzard introduced to combat high number of SOJs in the market, and that was Diablo Clone, also known as Uber Diablo. With the introduction of Declone, the process of selling SOJs to the merchants to spawn him was also introduced. This was a way to help keep the SOJ market at bay and also brought the Annihilus charm into the game. What was kind of interesting with the anti-charm when it was first included in the game is that it couldn't be traded through the normal player trade function. This led to anti-trades requiring the charm to be dropped on the ground, which did lead to a lot of scamming. One common anti-scam that I saw occur frequently included having a player drop the anti on the ground on the bottom side of the wagon near Warev in Act 2, while the other trading player had their item on the ground on the top side of the wagon. And when they would go to swap sides, a third player who had been faking AFK would travel to Act 2 via Warev and swipe the ante. Number 5. New cube recipes. Another major change that came with patch 1.10 was the introduction of many new cube recipes that players take for granted now. This included the ability to cube socket normal quality weapons and armor, upgrading rare and unique items from normal to exceptional and exceptional to elite, and even included the ability to combine and upgrade runes to higher runes. While it wasn't that big of a deal before 1.10 with very limited runewords in the game, imagine today not having the ability to cube socket a good base you find, or not having the ability to cube up runes to what you need. Number 6. New unique items. Going hand in hand with what I mentioned earlier around Blizzard needing to spice up itemization following the removal of best in slot bugged and duplicated items, this included adding many new elite level versions of unique items. A few examples include Death's Web, Nightwing's Veil, and Crown of Ages. Patch 1.10 was also the patch that introduced rainbow facets into the game. On top of all these new items, there were new uniques that existed only on the new ladder mode introduced in this patch, which included Andariel's Visage, Death Cleaver, and Tyrael's Might. Number 7. Introduce the ladder mode. This is another system that is hard to believe didn't exist prior to patch 1.10. Prior to this patch, there were no ladders or leaderboards or seasonal resets, and no ladder-specific items. Ladders were introduced in 1.10 and included ladders for hardcore and softcore modes, as well as an overall ladder and class-specific ladders. This was probably the single most important change that was made to the game for drastically increasing the longevity, as every 6 months over the course of the next 20 years, many players would flock back for the ladder and economy reset, and now it's something you see in basically every single ARPG. Number 8. Skill Synergies. On top of all of the itemization changes that were made, patch 1.10 introduced skill synergies to the game. Skill synergies are bonuses that apply to a specific skill if you allocate skill points into the supporting skill. An example of this is looking at the tooltip for Blessed Hammers, and you see at the bottom that Blessed Hammer receives damage bonuses from both Blessed Aim and Vigor. Before 1.10, these bonuses did not exist, and therefore many common builds that you think of today didn't exist. There were also a wide array of additional balance changes that occurred, so I will include a link in the description that outlines all of those balance changes. Number 9. Increased difficulty. To offset the skill synergies and class balance changes, additional monster difficulty was needed, which included increased HP and damage, as well as AI improvements. Most of the added difficulty occurred in Nightmare and Hell, but also occurred in Act 5 across the board. Anyone who played through this patch noticed this massive difference between killing monsters in 1.09 versus 1.10, with many builds that were nearly immortal in 1.09 now having to pay attention to avoid dying. They also swapped out some of the monster types in Act 5 for more ranged-based monsters. Such examples include Burning Archers and Demon Imps. Number 10. Cow runs to Baal runs. Finally, the last reason 1.10 changed everything was the leveling meta shift from cow runs to Baal runs. Yes, there was actually a time where the leveling meta was doing cow runs over and over. So much so that there were even dedicated BattleNet lobby channels for cow runs. The experience was also considerably better than it was doing Baal runs post 1.10 patch, and hitting 99 on a character wasn't overly difficult. Blizzard specifically nerfed cow runs, which when paired with the increased difficulty and experience added to Act 5, Baal runs became the new leveling standard. That is until Terra Zones were introduced in D2R 20 years later. So, what do you think? Is any of this information new to you? Were you someone that got to play in patch 1.09 prior to all of the massive changes to the game? Let me know in the comments below. And please like and subscribe if you want to see more Diablo 2 nostalgia videos in the future.